Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Marvel Strike Force. Now, today, we're going to be talking about what you can do to shave off literally months of your time towards Dark Dimension 7 and Mephisto. Yes, another one of those videos. If you guys didn't catch my previous video that I talked about basically the amount of time that it's going to take, both with the new raid difficulties and just in general between the raid drops and gold spending and how much time that's going to take, it is quite a bit. But if you're someone who is willing to increase the amount of gold that you spend in the supply store, believe it or not, we're going to break down exactly how much time that's going to save. And we're also going to break down what you should be concerning yourself with, because yeah, there are some things that are probably worth more than others in terms of how much of this that you need. The website on msf.gg has been updated as well to reflect that, and we're going to take a look at that as well. So if you're ready to go, everybody, let's boil this down. And the first thing that I want to talk about here is, well, we'll just make it very easy, is the supply store. Now, this isn't the first time that I brought you guys to the supply store, but I've had some more time to think about it, especially this past week over the weekend, things like that. And I've kind of actually adjusted what it is that I'm going to be buying, because I really thought about this. I thought about this hard. I thought about gear tier, all the teal gear tiers, that we went through, and what ended up being the large issue when it came to upgrading our characters. Some of you might already know this, who had to go through this or had this problem yourself. It's actually a combination of Origin Gear and Catalyst. Now, I know what you're thinking is that it is also the uniques. And this is true when it comes to new character releases, because then you have to go through, especially when you had to go through the teal gear for gear tier 18, right? And you had upwards to 65 teal uniques that you had to like upgrade on one character. So yeah, that is still a little bit of an issue and a concern that you'll have to have, especially to make sure that they're upgraded up to gear 18 so they're even ready for red gear. But when a new gear tier starts, like we only need 18 of these for one character, which by the time that you're kind of more ready for Dark Dimension 7 is actually not going to be a huge issue. If you're equipping like maybe 2 or 3 or more of the same unique characters, yeah, you might want to buy a couple of them. And that's going to be for things like osmium, might be for alien spores, and maybe the book or whatever the Black Knight uses, because now Mephisto uses it as well. So a few of those, but for the most part, you don't actually, and probably don't need to concern yourself at this time of buying too many uniques. Now, I guess the pro side of things is that you're always going to use it. So even when we get to gear tier 20, 21, you're going to eventually use them. So it won't be it's not going to be a complete waste. It's just not something that you immediately need right now. You're not going to need that many of them, because as you start gaining red orbs from the raids, it's going to drop. Now, it's not going to be, everything that you're looking for. It's not going to be, you're not going to get all your osmium there, but you will get a good spread over the course of a month, 3 months, that kind of thing, that you won't have to like directly buy too many of the uniques. So I am buying mainly, ones that I know off the top of my head that I'm probably going to gear, like I said, the ones that I mentioned. Now, the other things that you need to actually buy, believe it or not, is actually Origin Gear and Catalyst. Catalyst being a pretty big one. So you do need a lot of Origin Gear, and you're always going to use it, whether it's for gear tier 19, 20, 21, and I know that's looking ahead, but you're not going to get all of this in the appropriate amount from the red gear orbs, because you're going to get a lot of random stuff, right? You could end up getting the RNG of like a lot of Mystic Gear. Actually, that'd be a good thing. And you might end up getting a lot of skill and tech gear that you don't necessarily need, whereas you might end up needing more bio gear or whatever origin, right? And Catalyst is another big thing. Mini uniques at this time I'm not, because with the increase of difficulty, we're getting almost a guaranteed armory 19 orb per day, which is about 4 minis, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it will start stacking up. So for the cost of 400k, I am at the moment in the beginning going to start buying up some things that are a little bit cheaper to buy, but things that we're always going to need. So that's going to be the Catalyst gear, the Origin pieces, which is 10 for 200k, which actually isn't terrible value given how much we need. And then there's going to be, I don't want to refresh this again, but you can get basically 20k a piece for Catalyst and for the basic Catalyst parts. We'll talk about that when we go into the website. So those are the things that you should be honestly looking out for. Now, just to give you a little bit of an example, I am going to open up my red gear orbs that I haven't opened. This is about 4 days worth, I think. I haven't touched any of them since it's gone live on Friday or whenever they adjusted the change. So I'm just going to open some of these and I'm going to show you what this, and hopefully I get some good luck here. That actually looked pretty good. I got 3 uniques out of that. So that was 3 out of 10, which is pretty good because the drop rate's 20%. So every 10, I should get at least 2, which means I'm a little bit above average. Now, unfortunately, a Carbonadium might be okay, actually, for Omega Red if I decide to still have to use him. Tiger if I decide to use her. Vibranium if I decide to use Captain America. Because of out of time, so that's not terrible. Bloodborne nanobots, I don't think at this point is nothing really great, but you can see the spread of origin gear, and this is the stuff that I wanted to talk as well. So Crimson basic catalyst parts, you are going to need a lot of these, and so that's something that you're going to need for every single character. When it comes to the catalyst, though, I did say buy catalyst. What I really meant to say was buy focus and health catalyst and maybe some damage catalyst. Do not buy resistance and armor catalyst because typically that's not used very much. Now, normally a lot of these are the least used for sure, hands down. Like if you go through your teal horde of resistance and armor, I can guarantee you that you're probably not using a lot of them. But these 3, the focus, health, and damage third, but definitely focus and health, is because the unique piece for each of the characters tend to use those 2 stats, health and focus, more than anything else, which means you're going to use more of these than you will the other ones. Now, of course, you do need a lot of these as well, so I would buy those too. And you might be thinking, Boilon, where are we getting all of this gold to do that? And believe it or not, the gold is actually there. So free to play, there is about 120 million gold on a monthly basis. This is a huge improvement to like this time 2 years ago. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I did a video around then. I actually did check a little bit. I think we were at the 50 million mark. So we've more than doubled our gold income in 2 years. And so while this might sound a lot to say splash 2 to even 3 million gold a day on red gear, it's there for you to do. It will mean though for some people that you're not going to be able to, max out as many characters per month. But that's kind of the small price to pay if you want to get ahead for Dark Dimension 7. Now, who is this kind of aimed towards? This is aimed towards, people who are already up to date, who have completed Dark Dimension 6 twice, who, have a good chunk of teal gear that they're not having to buy it from the supply store. If you haven't even hit Dark Dimension 6 yet, then you're probably not buying red gear because you might still be buying some stuff teal gear wise in order to kind of, make that extra push. So I should have said that in the beginning in terms of, the audience of the video. Let's finish up opening some of these orbs though. And that doesn't look like any unique. So 0 out of 10. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but you can see another 30 crimson basic catalyst parts. I got some, not very many health here, but it's a small spread, but you will see that, the orbs will not drop equitably. That you'll end up getting some more than others in terms of pieces, and in this case, resistance over other pieces. And so that's why you kind of need the supply store to kind of bridge that gap, right? What you're missing, what you need more of, which again is going to be these 2 right here. You're going to need lots of them, trust me. And origin gear that, doesn't drop equitably, that you're going to need more of some other stuff than others. Let's open 10. Oh, we don't have 10. 6 more. Let's see. I got 2. 2 out of 6. That's pretty good. And actually, fucking Bloodborne nanobots. I hate this one. That's 800k. I wish I could get back, but who knows? Maybe they'll drop a character that's really good later down the line, and that I'll actually like that. Molecular cloth for Craven the Hunter, which is good, and I don't know if I'll end up taking any of the others, but at least for Craven, right? And so the fact that I have like in some instances I already have like 2 or 3 uniques for one character, which is not 18, but it's only been a few days, and so the fact that over the course of, let's say, what's realistic for free to play players, I would say at a bare, if you're spending a lot of gold, I would say bare minimum like 6 months. By that time, you'll probably have a good spread from all the gear, especially as we get to the higher raid tiers, that you will have those uniques that you need. So I don't think that this is a huge priority. It's actually going to be the huge bulk that you're going to need from the other stuff. Let's just, for shits and giggles, open up these Armory 19s. Not that I really care that much, but this is going to give me 8. Yeah, 2 times 4 in terms of my G19 mini uniques. Now, in case you didn't notice, they did add this more recently. Some people maybe didn't see this, but they added this descriptor to it as well. So geared tier 19 skill mini unique. And the way that you differentiate is that they have the 2 side notches there, basically, and the uniques have 4 notches on all 4 sides, and then it says geared tier 19 unique when you click on it. I could have showed you before, but I kind of forgot. So that's how things they're doing now. This was updated depending on when you're watching this. I'm recording this on Monday, so that's when I noticed it. Anyways, maybe it was in a little bit before that. So that's to do with the red gear that I recommend you purchasing. Now the question is why, right? And a lot of that has to do with MSF.GG and how much you need. So for the purposes of this segment, I do want to kind of bring up, popular characters that you're probably going to upgrade, most likely for Dark Dimension 7. We'll start with some of the city characters because these are the ones that I think a lot of people will end up trying to, upgrade. And so let's take a look at Ghost Rider Robbie. So in terms of getting him upgraded, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Oh, did I zoom in too far? Over here on the right-hand side. So if you can see this anyways, this is the gear that Robbie needs for gear tier 19, right? He needs one focus piece, he needs a damage piece, a health piece, and then his unique piece, which ironically enough, requires focus. So he has a focus piece and focus unique. So in terms of the total amount of gear that he needs, well, he needs 500 Crimson basic catalyst parts, 180 focus, and lo and behold, no armor pieces because he's still using the teal stuff up here, right? And the resistance. That just is pretty common across a lot of characters. So you're going to be basically needing exactly what I said, right? Health, focus, and damage, and then you're gonna need even more when it comes to the unique piece as well. So 180 focus, 100 damage, 100 health should be in here as well, and then the the origin gear pieces as well in this order. So you're gonna need more of the arcane powder, a little bit less of the glyphs, and a little bit less of the vials because there's always, and I think I can go and click on one of the characters that you can see that you're always gonna need extra amounts of the first one, a little bit less of the second one, and a little bit less still of the third one. I don't know. I'll use Apocalypse as an example for this right here. Right. So more of this, the X genes, then the cytoplasms, then the metabolic enhancer. So really, if you're going to be buying a lot of this stuff, you want to focus on this one here, which is I call Origin 1, right? You're going to need a lot of that stuff. Origin 1 for all of the origins. And this varies across depending on what you need. So yes, I did buy 10 of these. I'll most likely make use of it. But I would focus it on what I call Origin 1. I don't know where I'm going. This is what I call it. I don't know what other people call it. But it requires, a ratio more than the other pieces. Now, other characters that we might be using, let's just say Kraven the Hunter. This looks very similar to Ghost Rider, right? Focus, damage, and health. So he's going to require, and his unique actually requires health as well. So in this case, he's using more health pieces. It's pretty much identical to what Ghost Rider Robbie needs, just more health pieces and, of course, skill origin gear. Let's say Black Knight, right? And Black Knight at gear tier 18 to 19, because for global, a lot of people are probably going to upgrade him. Now, he's different because he's a tank. Maybe this is why I like and why I want to upgrade him, because he actually uses the armor catalyst and the resistance catalyst, which very few people do. Usually tanks. And actually, in fact, unfortunately, his unique piece does use the health one. So it is what it is there. But again, these are the things that you're going to want to think of and things that you're going to be using quite frequently. Craziest thing on Black Knight seems to be that he doesn't actually require any basic catalyst. This is super rare, actually, for that to happen, and I didn't know that before clicking on him just now. But he doesn't require any basic catalyst, like Robbie requires 500, Kraven requires 500, and then I have Vol open here as well. We'll take a look at Vol, because I think Vol still might be a shoe-in for Cosmic just because of how powerful they are. So again, you need 3 red pieces, damage, health, and resistance. That's a little bit surprising as well. The unique piece does require health. So what's the grand total for Vol? Well, in terms of red, we do have 250 Crimson Basic Catalyst. That one's also a little bit surprising, but again, you can see the kind of spread there as well. So I actually don't think that mini uniques might end up being a little bit important, but I think that you're not going to end up being able to equip all of these characters, the 25 that you need for Dark Dimension 7, if you're not paying attention to the bulk of what characters require, which is going to be those catalysts, namely the ones that I mentioned, and the origin gear, I think actually is going to run away, because depending on how many characters that you end up upgrading, you're going to need, I don't know, just ballpark, since Vol takes what? A 228 arcane powder. Let's just say, for sake of argument, you're going to have 5 or 6 characters per origin. That means you're probably going to need about 1,000 or so, maybe 1,000, 800, and 600 of each of these origin pieces. So that's why, origin 1 is going to be some of the most important stuff that you're going to want to buy. So this is what I'm looking out for in terms of the store. I am actually spending more gold than I originally was on Friday, or whenever the day it first came out for the gear tier. It was a little bit before that, actually, when it came out in the supply store. And that's because I really just thought about it. I sat down, I thought about what I actually needed and what I'm probably going to have less of. And because the orbs, you don't get to choose what drops, this is the only way that you can selectively buy things that you need. So, the things that I know that we're going to need is the things that I outlined in this video. But hey, I'm just willing to spend a little bit more gold on this than other people. And I think that if you want to kind of basically shave off months and months of progress towards Dark Dimension City, I'm not even joking here because the amount of gold that you put in this is going to be directly relevant to how fast that you get into Dark Dimension 7. Is it a race? Not necessarily, but those of you who, had scroll early on or didn't have scroll and had to fight them, you know for damn well that that's going to impact a lot of your other places in the game. So while I don't want to make stress people out too much, if you are wanting to remain competitive in the game, of course, this is going to be a huge concern for you. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm going to be continuing to buy every single day, probably at least 2 million, maybe 3 million gold a day in various bits of origin gear and catalyst because I know I'm going to use them and maybe those coveted uniques like osmium, something like that. But that's going to be the end of this video, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see y'all later. Boilon, signing out.